I've long known that Logitech makes products that are for Mac, but for my purposes, I switch between Windows and Mac, and so it never made sense for me to pursue a product that was Mac only. Now, it wasn't until just recently that I took a closer look at these products when I was researching for a different video, and honestly, what I found was kind of shocking. See, with a regular Logitech product, take this mouse for example, this is the one I was researching for the video. This is compatible with your Windows machine or with Mac OS. It's also compatible with Linux, Android OS, iPad OS, etc. You get the idea. It sells for $70. Now, there's a Mac-only version of this that works exclusively with Mac OS or iPad OS, but it also sells for $70. But Cameron, I hear some people saying, I only use Apple products, so why do I need the additional compatibility? To which I would say, don't you want it just in case? What if a friend visits that wants to borrow it that doesn't have a Mac, or you get a new work or school computer that isn't Mac, or any scenario where you would need it to be able to do both? Anyway, there's more. The universal one is available in both this right-handed model and also in a left-handed model. The Mac-only one is only available in right-handed, which is funny because aren't left-handed people supposed to be more creative? And aren't creative people supposed to use Macs? It just seems weird. Anyway, there's still more. This universal version comes in white, black, or even pink. The Mac version comes in white. Just the same exact white. Finally, the universal version comes with a Logi-Bolt USB receiver. Now, this little thing here costs $15 on its own. It's included in the universal. The Mac version, it's compatible, but it doesn't include it. So tell me this, Logitech. Why offer the exact same product with fewer options, less connectivity, and literally missing a piece? What's that? Turns out it's because it's more profitable. Well, that's okay. I'm sure on their website they're going to show the main version first, and then the Mac version will be an alternative for people who simply don't need the other The Mac version is shown first in every situation. So how pervasive is this? Because there are a lot of products out there that are for Mac on Logitech's website. In the case of this Lift mouse that we were talking about before, I think it's 10 out of 10 a scam. There are no differentiating qualities, and you are paying the same price and getting less. That is just abundantly clear. The Mac version does not need to exist in this case. But let's take a look at the other products and give them the benefit of the doubt. I do have notes here, so forgive me. I want to make sure that I get all of these accurately. So if I'm looking down, I apologize. But let's start with the Master 3S. Now, just like we saw before, when you get the universal version, Logi-Bolt is included. And when you get the Mac version, Logi-Bolt is compatible. There are 3 colors in the universal one: black, white, and graphite, whereas the Mac version comes in white or space gray. Space gray is definitely a buzzword for Mac users, but it looks awfully similar to the black and graphite versions. So I don't know that that's really a differentiator. Now, the universal version has a USB-A to USB-C cable, whereas the Mac version does have a USB-C to USB-C cable. And I understand this is a differentiator. So you might be saying, okay, well, I'm a Mac user. I only have USB-C ports on my computer. I need to have USB-C to USB-C. And while yes, this cable is an upgrade, and that is nice, it's not $15 nice. It's not Logi-Bolt level of nice. You can get a USB-C to USB-C cable pretty cheap on Amazon. And tech tip, rather than doing that, as long as you're not using one of the absolute latest MacBooks that have MagSafe, just unplug your USB-C cable from your laptop and plug it into your device. And you don't need a USB-C to USB-C at all. Next we have the MX Anywhere 3, the smaller version. This has a unifying receiver. It's a little bit older, doesn't have the Logi-Bolt. Once again, unifying receiver included for universal and not included for the Mac version. And the Mac version is a little bit confusing in the documentation. I think it might actually be Bluetooth only. It might not actually work with the unifying receiver, which is even worse once again. The universal version comes in 4 different colors, white, pink, and 2 different shades of basically black, whereas the Mac version comes only in white. Now, there is also the USB-C cable situation where this has A to C and the Mac version has C to C, but I think you've already seen that there's much more with the regular version than there is with the Mac version here as well. Now on to keyboards, and one thing to note is that with keyboards you will see some changes in the keycaps, but these are really just aesthetic. They're not actually changing the functionality of the buttons, and there's pretty good remapping functionality in the software for Logitech anyway, so if you wanted to change something, you can probably just do it through there. So it's really not a differentiating factor in my mind. But we'll start with the new MX Mechanical, and much like before, the MX Mechanical that's universal comes with Logi Bolt. The one that is Mac only does not. The universal one comes in both this mini as well as a full size. The Mac is only available in the mini, which we're not necessarily comparing apples to apples in that case, so not too big of a deal. But in this case, we do have our only win, I would say, for the Mac, where this only comes in black when you're dealing universal, but it comes in both black or white if you're getting the Mac version. There's also the same USB cable situation with the A to C versus the C to C. So if you want a white version of the MX Mechanical and you use a Mac, it's about the only time when it's going to make sense for you to go specifically with the Mac version. So finally we have the MX Keys, and the MX Keys is kind of the elder statesman of the bunch here, and it's a little bit all over the place. So it depends on whether you're looking at the full size or the mini. The full size uses the unifying receiver, and both versions, the regular and the Mac, include it. And both are only available in black. They look slightly different, but they're both black. The Mini, on the other hand, is Logi Bolt, but neither of them include it, so they're both just compatible with Logi Bolt. From a color perspective there on the Minis, you have white, pink, and 2 shades of black on the regular side, and once again, white only on the Mac side. But so up until this point, aside from colors on the Mini, we're really dealing with apples to apples. And in this case, in both situations, we do have the USB cable situation, where we have A to C and C to C, which means in the case of the MX Keys, and only in the case of the MX Keys, when you are purchasing the Mini, as long as you're getting white, and when you're purchasing the regular full size, no matter what, if you get the Mac version, as long as you only need to use it for Mac, obviously, you are actually getting something that is worth more. And that's making an assumption that a C to C cable is slightly more expensive than an A to C cable, which I think is a fact, but I guess you could debate me in the comments if you feel otherwise. But what this means is that for the first time, the Mac product is actually going to be a lower margin product for Logitech than the regular one. That's the only time this has been the case, and I'm sure if we now take a look at the keyboard page, we're going to see the same behavior where they're putting Mac first because that's just the way that they do. Oh, never mind. They put the regular MX Keys before the Mac MX Keys in this case because the regular ones are higher profit for them. Well, that's annoying. So other than the cable situation, the original full-size MX Keys is how Logitech used to be. The unifying receiver was universal, and if your product was compatible with it, it was going to come in the box. Now that they've switched over to the Logi Bolt, it's confusing. They're seemingly using it in this sort of manipulative way where they're including it in some places and not including it in other places. And whether or not they're truly trying to anticipate consumers' needs and putting it only where absolutely necessary, or whether it's purely a play to make certain products more profitable, either way, it sucks and it should stop. As for the website, nudging people into buying an objectively worse product feels an awful lot like a predatory dark pattern to me. And yes, all the information is there to make an informed decision when you're purchasing. However, it's no coincidence that the Mac version shows up first every single time, except in the one circumstance that the Mac version is going to be less profitable for Logitech. All I can say is don't buy the Mac versions. They're just a scam.